Hello, and welcome to the Journey Mappers podcast, the official podcast of the OU Pledge, where we explore how curiosity, courage, and connection empower Golden Grizzlies to design meaningful lives and careers. I am Wayne Thibodeau, the Senior Director of the Career and Life Design Center, and your host for today's episode. Today on Journey Mappers, we are joined by Ian Duncanson, the Market Manager with the Oakland University Credit Union, who's also a proud sponsor of the OU Pledge and a true partner in helping students design their future financial futures. Hello, Ian. Great to see you, and thank you for joining us on today's podcast. We want to thank you for the support you have given to Golden Grizzlies, but also for the continued support here at the university. I'm really excited about today's episode, not only for students and families, but also on a personal level. I have adult children who are now ready to pay off those loans.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, Wayne.
Let's start with your story. So what led you to the Oakland University Credit Union and really sparked your passion for helping students build their financial literacy skills?
So I actually started after I graduated from Michigan State and started at what was MSU Federal Credit Union out in the East Lansing area. But we've had the relationship with Oakland University, or MSU FCU has had the relationship with OU since 1973. And in 2013, we actually became the official credit union of Oakland University. So I knew coming in 2014 that we already had the OU Credit Union brand. My dad went to OU. My sisters both went to OU. So, and I grew up in Rochester, so very familiar. But what was really intriguing to me about OU Credit Union's philosophy with working with the public and specifically students is that we have this philosophy of education. And so it's not just about giving you, the specific account or loan that you're looking for. It's also teaching you how do you use it? How can we provide the right product or service for you? And that really has always spoken to me. I worked in our branches for a little while, and I would talk to students about credit cards. And for me, what was really great is that our philosophy has always been the right product for the right member and not trying to, have commission or sales goals that then, result in negative decisions for folks. We want to make sure that everyone gets the product or service they need when they need it and that they understand how to use it and use it effectively.
Well, thank you for sharing that story and the partnership with Oakland University and the credit union. It's been a great partnership. Now let's talk about paying for college. It does feel overwhelming to families to navigate the many options that they have of loans, grants, and scholarships, right? Can you talk us through the many differences and what are the main differences between these options and how students can make smart choices for borrowing?
Sure. So I kind of consider there to be three main buckets. So there's scholarships, grants, and loans. And then within loans, there's public and private loans. So grants are typically administered through a university or through some sort of state or local funding that provides grants based on a set criteria that you don't necessarily have to take additional actions to receive. Scholarships are a little bit more, there's a little bit more required of you as the student. But in that case, they may be offered by university or institutions. They might be offered through the state, and they also might be offered through private businesses, organizations, nonprofits, et cetera. And so scholarships is where students have the most power to really go and look for the funding. Now, what I like about scholarships and grants is that both of those are essentially free money and that you don't have to repay those. And so those reduce your obligations in terms of your overall expenses. For loans, anything that you borrow, you do have to ultimately pay back. And so it's really important to just borrow only what you need and not to overborrow and spend the extra on, gaming systems or other things. I tend to be in favor more of public loans because public loans, those are going to be the ones through FAFSA. where they're issued through governmental institutions. They have certain benefits in terms of your repayment structures when you graduate. They typically have lower loan rates and fewer like credit qualifications in order to obtain them. And then, not to get too in the weeds, but there are subsidized loans where the government pays your interest while you're in school, and unsubsidized loans where interest accrues while you're in school. But most public loans, you don't have to make payments while you're in school. Private loans, they're a little bit different in that some of them offer flexible repayment, some of them require payments while you're in school, and others don't. And so you want to make sure that if you are taking private loans to fill any gap, that you're really aware of what are the benefits and drawbacks of that loan.
So it sounds like it's really in the best interest of the families to do their homework, do their research, and find out what best fits their future financial needs.
Sure. And just to kind of simplify it, filling out FAFSA is always the first step.
Yes.
Try and maximize your grants and any automatic scholarships, and then try and apply for scholarships to fill gap financing, and if necessary, then fill in with private loans.
Sure. Well, we also know there's a lot of anxiety for families around paying off student loans after graduation. What advice do you give students who are preparing for that first repayment period? Maybe any misconceptions that you'd like to clear up for us?
Sure. So the number one thing is to take stock of what loans do I have and where are those loans. Typically, if you have federal loans, those will be consolidated into a single account that you will make one payment towards after graduation. And so you get the grace period and then start making payments. With private loans, those might be individual loans for each account. So you want to just see, what do I have? What are the repayment requirements? So what timeline do I have to start repaying? And then what payment options are there? Federal loans tend to have more of that flexibility of, what is my income, and then allow that to determine your repayment. It can feel like a weight when you're looking at how much you owe in total when you graduate, depending on how much you borrowed. But it's really important to recognize that your priority is really to get your life stood up. And so it's okay if you qualify for a lower monthly payment to start. That's okay while you're getting your life established, and you can always pay extra, but qualifying for the lowest payment is usually going to give you the most flexibility in your budget.
So you talked about that first income, right? Once a student graduates and starts earning their first paycheck, and that take-home pay can really be quite surprising. How should new graduates approach budgeting when their first paycheck hits, and what are some of the simple rules for creating a realistic budget that actually works?
Yeah, so I know many students work while they're in school or may have worked before, and so those students might already have an idea of about how much will come out for taxes and benefits and things. Sometimes there are taxes you're not paying while you're a student, and so when you get that first job, it is important to analyze what are you signing up for in terms of your health benefits, your retirement plan contributions, because all of those will ultimately impact what your take-home pay is. My biggest piece of advice is always to consider what is kind of the average or expected income. So many jobs may offer some overtime, and where I've seen folks get into trouble is they build a budget and a monthly expense habit based on that overtime that isn't always guaranteed. So the best thing you can do is to start with what is your income that is guaranteed, and let any additional income on top of that kind of be icing on the cake that helps pay off debt or build your savings. And then work backwards from your income to evaluate what can I afford in terms of housing payments, in terms of my dining out budget, my entertainment expenses, and some of those other things.
Great advice. Thank you, Ian. So starting adult life often means big purchases, right, for students. So maybe it's their first car, maybe a down payment on their first home, or even their first apartment. What should students keep in mind financially as they make those early life decisions?
I think looking at the overall budget rather than each individual expense is really helpful. If you're looking just at what car do I want to drive, and you're not considering what your other expenses are going to be, it can be easy to get into a tricky financial situation where then you're kind of living on the edge of your budget or struggling to keep up. So it's really important to look at what is the overall picture, and then what are my priorities. There's buying new cars or used cars. There, you can buy a house in one city or the city next door and have wildly different expenses, both in your mortgage payment, but also in your property taxes. So doing a little bit of research, especially with those large purchases, is really important. And then I would say, additionally, with things like, getting an apartment or buying a car, any of those big expenses are often going to require a credit score.
Yes.
And so getting a jump start on building credit can help to reduce the barriers when it comes time to make those expenses in lowering your security deposit for an apartment, or lowering your application fees, or lowering your interest rate. And so getting a head start on building credit can make those future doors easier to open.
Thank you. That's a great lead into our next topic, is around that building the credit, right? How might you recommend students build that early in order for them to make a difference for down the road?
Sure. I will give the caveat that the approach is going to be different for everyone based on what they need. But typically my recommendation is to consider a small credit card as a first way to build credit.
Okay.
There's a couple reasons I say that. Number one, with a credit card, you're not borrowing any money until you actually use the credit card. So you can borrow or use as little or as much of it as you need, but having that credit card open is going to start building credit for you. Keeping the balance lower is actually really good for your credit. Maxing that credit card out can actually hurt your credit. So getting a credit card early does help you to establish that credit history and demonstrate responsibility. The other reason I say a credit card is really good is that you don't have to pay interest on a credit card.
Okay.
So if you use a credit card for expenses you're already paying for, maybe out of a checking account, and you pay them off each month by the due date, no interest is going to accrue. And so all other loan types that you might use to build credit are going to require that you're paying interest until that loan is paid off, at which point that loan also falls off of your credit history. With a credit card, you could have that. I have one that I opened when I was 18, and I've had it my whole life. Okay. And so not only do I have length of credit history, I also am able to avoid paying interest on it. I'm able to keep the balance low, and all of those things help me to build a credit score.
Well, good advice. We know the credit card buildup and managing that can be very challenging for not only students, but for families, right?
Golden Grizzlies, earn more and stand out. Whether you're restocking your fridge or fueling up for your next road trip, make your everyday purchases count with OU Credit Union. The Visa Signature Credit Card gives you perks with every swipe. 3% cash back on groceries, 2% on gas, travel, and university purchases, and 1% on everything else. Plus, with its sleek black grizz design, you'll show off your OU pride every time you swipe. Learn more and apply today at oucreditunion.org/visa. And I would say there's a lot of fear around credit cards because there was a period where lending practices with credit cards were a little more predatory, and people were signing up for them and not really understanding how interest accrues or what the late fees were or how maxing it out could hurt their credit. And so there's really a whole generation that struggled with credit cards. And so I think flipping the script on that is it can really be an empowering tool if you know going in, here's how I'm going to make the payments. I'm only going to charge what I can already afford to pay off, and I can do this while building credit and not paying interest.
Okay, great. So you're leaned into a little bit about buying versus leasing, but let's try our best to demystify what we know is on the minds of our new college graduates, maybe buying versus leasing. What's the difference, and how can someone really decide what's right and what's best for them?
Sure. So if you go to a dealership, they are by and large nowadays very pro leasing, and so that's often how they lead. Leasing is essentially renting a car, and you can have a lower monthly payment because you're essentially purchasing 3 years or 4 years of ownership of that car and then turning the car back in at the end. And so the monthly expense, rather than paying for the whole vehicle, you're paying for that period of ownership or renting it for that period of time. Some of the caveats to be aware of with leasing is there's usually a mileage restriction, and so you want to make sure that the number of miles you're allotted per year aligns with what your current and anticipated driving habits are.
Sure.
And then also just recognizing that you're not going to get that ownership in the vehicle by the end.
Yes.
So leasing, some of the pros, you do typically, leases are for new cars. And so it's generally still under warranty. There's usually some additional protections that come with that. And when the lease is up, you also don't have an asset you have to worry about, what do I do with it now? So there's a couple benefits there. Buying, where you might get a car loan or pay cash, most people get a car loan, is where you're going to have a monthly payment based on the purchase price of the vehicle and how long you schedule the loan out for. At the end of that loan, you would own the vehicle. And so that's kind of the main difference there. With the added flexibility I like with purchasing is that you can purchase a new vehicle or you can buy a used vehicle. I often buy a used one that's, lightly used. Often they were leases and they got turned in, and now I'm buying it as a used vehicle, and you miss some of that initial depreciation in the value that happens when you drive a brand new car off the lot. With leasing, the one other option I'll mention is at the end of a lease, if let's say I love this car, I really want to keep it, there is usually a clause allowing you to purchase that vehicle for a predetermined buyout value. And so that is also an option with leasing, and I have friends who have leased to own.
Well, at the end of the day, students need to figure out their budget and what's best for them, whether it's leasing, buying, and the future and the long-term commitment. We're going to shift gears to now this whole crypto and kind of this whole stock options. With the buzz around crypto and meme stocks, investing can look really effortless online to students. What's your perspective on this trend that's going on today?
So there are more options for investing than there have ever been before. Different apps, websites, and it's promoted across so many different social media channels. Kind of further complicating this is there's also a lot of like online gambling sites that kind of sometimes get mixed in.
Sure.
And so the biggest piece of advice I have when it comes to investing is to do your research in advance and not to lean into investments based on vibes. So you can be getting advice from someone on social media and not really know whether that advice is accurate or not. And so I like to double check sources, look in a few different places, do some research, and maybe even talk to a financial advisor if I'm going to be talking about a larger sum of money. There's a lot with cryptocurrency that's very new.
Okay.
And so with cryptocurrency, it is intended to be a currency if you think about like the US dollar, but it isn't always behaving that way in how people are using it. They're using it more as an investment, and it can swing wildly one direction or the other. So that is a lot more like gambling at the present. When it comes to meme stocks, or there's some of the meme coins within the crypto space, those are typically the most risky and the most like gambling because there's no fundamental value behind them. They're actually just you're hoping that if I buy in and a bunch of other people buy in, that I'll be able to sell before everyone else backs out. So it's really not the best use of funds if your goal is to actually invest and earn money for goals that you have.
Sure. Now, for a student, Ian, who's looking to balance student loans and wanting to invest, how do you recommend that they prioritize that? And is it really too early to start investing responsibly now?
I would say it's, investing does require you're at least 18 years old. Outside of that, it's never too early to start investing as long as you have a strategy and a plan behind it, and as long as you're investing money that is not needed for something in the short term. So I say that because I've seen people invest money that could be used or should be used maybe to make student loan payments. Or maybe they have a wedding and they figure, well, hey, if I invest this, maybe I can double it or triple it and then use that money to pay for the wedding. In a short-term context, investing is much more like gambling because if you pay attention to some of the different stock averages and things like that, one news cycle can result in wild swings up or down, and it can take time to recover. So I say that to say investing is always wise, and there is no age that's too early to start, but it should be money that is budgeted for investing rather than money that's necessary for something else. Because the worst case scenario is you invest money and you lose that money and then also have to pay for whatever you were hoping to use that money for.
Great advice. So, Ian, I want to say thank you for all of your insight today, your knowledge. It's more important than ever that financially stability and knowledge is important for families and students. And I want to also thank you for making this feel approachable, right? These decisions are not easy. For students who want to keep learning, what resources does the Oakland University Credit Union offer to help them strengthen their financial literacy?
So we have a really great resource called Financial 4.0. It's a absolutely free mobile app and website. I will give the caveat there's an MSU and an OU version. So if you search in the App Store for Financial 4.0 for OU or search online Financial 4.0 Oakland University, you can access a full suite of different blogs and articles. There's videos and graphics. There's quizzes. You can test your knowledge. There's even an Ask an Expert function where you can submit a question and one of our financial educators will respond to you. And then there's a whole host of free seminars that happen every semester. And they're all currently conducted via Zoom. They're half an hour. Students can join any of them that they wish. And it's completely free whether you're a member of the credit union or not. So if you want to learn more just about investing, check out that session. If you want to learn just about credit, check out that session or join us for all of them.
Great. That's great to hear about not only the knowledge and the wealth of access, but also instant, right, online. And if someone really wants to walk through the situation in person or have additional questions maybe about a loan, budgeting, or maybe even building their credit, how can they connect with your team?
So my biggest advice would be to just reach out to the credit union. You can go to oucreditunion.org and review our resources there. We do have a virtual assistant that can help answer some of the basic questions. You can also chat with one of our employees through our chat feature. You can give us a call. Our phone number is on our website as well. Or you can just stop into one of our branches. We're located throughout the state of Michigan, and we even have branches in Illinois. But most convenient for students is we do have a branch right on campus here in the Oakland Center. And if that one's closed, but it's during our other business hours, we also have a branch on University Drive.
And we love your access on campus for sure. And finally, Ian, if you could leave students with one simple advice, maybe around designing their financial future and stability, what would that be?
So I think of it in its simplest term as planning equals freedom. So money can be a very daunting topic, and sometimes people don't know where to start. Sometimes people are afraid of what they're going to find when they start digging into it. And all of those things can be barriers to really sitting down and laying out a plan for what you want to do. When I think of the word budget, a lot of times people think of budgeting as, oh, I have to cut a bunch of things out.
Yes.
I think of a budget as really, I know what I have coming in from my income sources, and now I want to be intentional about how I spend that money so that I can make sure I don't feel like I'm just surviving, but I'm allocating that money towards the things that are the most important to me. That little bit of extra planning is going to open doors for things that you want to achieve down the road. And so planning leads to that added freedom.
Thank you, Ian, for coming on to our podcast series today. And thank you for watching today's episode of the Journey Mappers podcast series. See you next time.